Hello there and welcome to In My Opinion for Samurai Jack Battle Through Time. Just a heads up, the story for this game takes place right at the end of the Samurai Jack show, so I'll try my best not to spoil too much, but if you're still worried, just skip this part. The basic premise is the samurai is tasked in defeating the evil shape-shifting demon Aku. Before he strikes the final blow, Aku sends him to the future where he is much stronger. Fast forward to the end, and now the samurai known as Jack once again heads to fight Aku, but this time with allies. Events play out and Ashi, one of Jack's new allies, opens a portal to go back in time to stop Aku, but Aku interrupts this travel to bring Jack and Ashi. Now Jack is stuck in a place between time and has to find his way back to Ashi while Aku tries to break his spirit and or kill him. Like I said, this story takes place right at the end of the show, so don't expect character development since all that has already been done. What you do get is still some good character interactions, like Aku still being an evil dick to Jack. You also get to see some old faces from the show again, and I didn't feel like how they added extra time to the show's story was clunky. And if you're one of those viewers who wasn't a fan of the show's ending, the game does change it up if you collect something. For me, it didn't fix all my problems at the end, but it still left me feeling better than what the original ending was. The gameplay here mainly consists of some platforming with some hack and slash goodness, so you'll be taking on waves of enemies with multiple weapon types, which there are a good amount of. You have your sword, spear, club, hammer, and fist for more of your up and close combat. Jack also has some range options such as handguns, bow, machine guns, shurikens, and others. For the melee weapons, you're allowed to set up a weapon wheel to have access to any 4 at a time, while you have to manually equip your ranged weapons every time. Besides Jack's tried and true sword, every other weapon has a durability meter, and once that weapon is broken, it's gone. You can steal weapons with your hand-to-hand combat, but only if you unlock it from Jack's skill tree. You may have noticed drops as you kill enemies, and some of these drops are skill fire points, which is used to buy skills, be it stat upgrades like more health and defense, brand new combos for weapon types, and even new moves like disarm, parry, and dodge. Parry lets you counter the enemy's attack, throwing them off balance and letting you continue your assault. Dodge lets you slow down time by rolling at the right moment, giving you the opportunity to attack or gather yourself. Certain skills will need other things to unlock them, such as gems and Bushido Spirit, but these and skill fire can also be found around the stages, be it from breakables, chests, or even allies. There's even challenges in the game you can complete to receive more skill fire by doing such things as kill X amount of enemy type or do a move X amount of times. Enemies can also drop things called Dama, which can either restore health, increase strength, or defense. What you get is completely random. Another drop is Kia Fire, which I'm not sure I'm saying it right, but it builds up Jack's special meter shown by the fire symbol above his health. Once it's full, Jack can unleash a powerful attack. The combat is enjoyable and it never feels slow, and being able to switch between 4 different weapons does help as it lets you pick out the weapon you feel is best for the situation, and each weapon type does feel different from one another, which of course will lead you to having your personal favorites. Mine were the sword, spear, and fist. I do like that each weapon type gets their own animation for the Kia Fire attack, and it's not just the same one over and over again. The game's lock-on system works rather well, as I rarely find myself struggling to get a specific target, which is a good thing if you want to use some of your range equipment. And while a bow is fine and dandy, I do love sending a hail of bullets with my machine gun. What's also pretty cool is, just like the show, you get those metal sound effects when you strike enemies. Not only that, but when you cause a final blow, you get to see your robot foe get cut in 2, and it's not always the same slices either, as there are different spots that can get cut in half, which then leads to them just standing there, then glowing, then boom. And even if they don't get sliced, they still give off a big boom, which makes taking them out that much more gratifying. There are even moments that when you take out the final enemy, it gives you this cool little slow-mo thing. You would think by this being a game based on a cartoon that the challenge would be a breeze, but you would be wrong. When you first start the game, it's pretty easy, but once you make some progress, you can easily die as enemies do go at you pretty hard. And even some of the fun boss fights can take you out if you're not careful. Hell, there were times when I was at the final stage that I was still getting my ass whooped. You also have to take into account that your skills like dodge and parry have to be unlocked, so you have to get by without those for a minute. Though thankfully the skill tree does let you see what line unlocks what. So if you want to focus on getting certain skills, it's not a guessing game to what route to go in. It also shows how each skill looks if you're curious. Now this might sound like the game falls in that cheap difficulty territory, but it doesn't, as it's actually really fair, as it gives you a lot of checkpoints and even healing circles so you won't have to waste all your healing items. It even allows you on normal and below to come back to life when you die with some health, giving you a second chance. Now while the combat is good, there are some flaws such as the weapon switching being not so perfect. I wish you can actually switch mid-combo while in combat. So instead of, let's say, switching while I have someone in an air combo, instead it will finish my combo and then when I land, it switches. Not only that, but when you want to switch to a certain weapon to pull off a Kia Fire attack, let's say during a roll, the switch won't happen until you're standing again, so the game might read the input for the wrong weapon. There was also rare moments where enemies would stick me in the corner and I could barely defend myself. Now you really don't feel some of these negatives as much or at all in normal or even hard difficulty, but when you're on the hardest difficulty, enemies are way more aggressive and dangerous, so if you're planning to take on that difficulty, you've been warned. Also, fuck those ninja robots right to robot hell. I did mention the weapons do have durability, and I know that word is a huge turnoff for some, even me, but it's really not that bad here. The game shows you how durable each weapon is along with other stats like power. It also gives you a clear text warning when it's close to breaking and even changes color so you're never caught off guard. Even if a weapon does end up breaking on you, it can easily be replaced by finding it in the chest, disarming, or buying it from the shop. Since I mentioned the shop, let's talk about that since you'll be running into money drops along the way, be it from enemies or somewhere else. There's at least 1 to 2 shops each stage run by the samurai. And in here you can buy a bunch of stuff like weapons as I mentioned, ammo, healing and buff items, but most importantly you can buy accessories that can help out a lot, as they can increase things like your defense, how much money an enemy drops, and more. And when you buy one, a better version eventually shows up in the shop. The catch is you can only equip one accessory at a time, so pick whatever fits the moment. There's also an option to repair weapons that are near breaking, and while I said you can just get new ones, there are some that are kind of a hassle to get, as some can actually be stolen from bosses, which is actually cool within itself. The last thing you can do in the shop is upgrade a weapon type, making them more powerful and even gaining new combos. And these are pretty expensive, so much so you won't be getting all of them maxed out in your first run, so pick your favorites. One thing that came off odd is that the game does feel like it expects you to break the majority of your weapons, and the reason I say this is because the only way to get a really good amount of Bushido spirits in a timely fashion is by breaking your weapons. The main problem with this is the game does not let you know this, so you'll spend most of your time in your first playthrough making sure you're not breaking weapons and repairing them, only to go online to find out that yeah, breaking them is kind of needed to get a bigger amount of Bushido spirits. Mind you, even without knowing this my whole first playthrough, I was still able to upgrade a lot of stuff with the Bushido spirits I gained other ways, but it would have been nice if the game told me about this little breakable tidbit. While this game is pretty linear for the most part, there are little areas that are off the beaten path, and the game rewards you for exploring these with goodies like better weapons, gems, and so on. The paths can be simple, such as going down a different line and opening a chest, or it could be a little different like seeing a bunch of red-eye poles which screams to your gamer instinct to break, and bam, reward. These can also have a little bit of platforming. What I found pretty helpful is the game lets you zoom in the direction you're supposed to go, so you don't have to worry about which way to go if you're trying to collect everything. As the old saying goes for collecting and gaming, the wrong way is the right way. As I mentioned in the story section, there is something else you can collect that will lead to a new ending. These are called Corrupted Emperor Commons, which you need to gather 50 of. Most of these are kind of right in your face, with only some being well hidden. Good news is if you miss any, you can go back to any of the stages after beating the game and find them. And when you get them all, you never have to recollect them to see the ending, even if you change the difficulties. Bad news is the game doesn't let you know what stages contain your missing commons, which yeah, kinda fucking sucks. After beating the game, you unlock mission mode, which lets you take on little missions such as survive multiple waves, beat the clock, and a boss gauntlet. The missions also restrict you on what you can use while going through these, adding to the difficulty. After clearing one of them, you are ranked just like how you are in the regular story mode after you beat a stage, and are rewarded some cash. Sadly, no, the gem pickups you see here do not count towards the overall count in story mode. You're mainly doing these for the challenge, as you can gather money much faster in story mode as every stage refreshes its treasure and items when you go back in. Another thing you unlock after beating the game is the ability to stick to your default outfit no matter what stage you're in, or stick with the armor and beard look. Though what kinda sucks is no matter what costume you pick, the cutscene will change it to whatever default it's supposed to be. I'm really surprised with how good this game looks, since when you hear a licensed game, your mind would usually go to less than stellar visuals. But here, the developers nailed it. The game manages to take the show's art style and successfully bring it over to a 3D game realm. Jack and the rest of the cast look like they were plucked from the show, and things like how the models had that pointy look translates well here. I also appreciate the game's battle damage on Jack and how it shows up during cutscenes until the next stage starts. Even the menu show the care put in the visuals, as they do things like give Jack a different pose for every weapon type and even change the look of the weapons. The locations look really good as well, and like the character models captured the show, which is a good thing since those were nice and diverse. It was also neat to hear the cast come back to reprise their roles, making the experience feel more authentic. And it's not like they're phoning it in either, even though there aren't a ton of voice lines. Greg Baldwin, who will take over for Aku in the show because of the passing of Mako, still does a great job at capturing that character. The frame rate for most of my playtime was pretty smooth, with it only really dipping when a crazy amount of enemies and effects were on screen. It's more noticeable when you play on the hardest difficulty. The only really tech issues besides the wall thing I mentioned in the gameplay section is there is a tiny chance of voice and sound delay during the animations from the actual show.
samurai. You actually think you can escape from the mighty Aku?
I will. I can feel it.
Wrong! The only thing you will feel is my wrath!
You will not stop me, Aku.
This game showed the development team loved the source material or just did the research really well, as they captured the show perfectly in look and feel. Add a fun combat system and you got yourself a winner. I also like the different ending they added for the game. It took me about 4 and change to get through the game's 9 stages. I know that sounds pretty short, but it felt like a good length for this game. And you still get to see a lot of the areas from the show. When it comes to replayability, there is getting the comments for the different ending, different difficulties, and the mission mode. So if you want to challenge yourself more, there's something here. If you're a fan of Samurai Jack, then yeah, this is a no-brainer. This title is definitely worth your time. But even if you know nothing about the show and just want a fun little action adventure hack and slash, I still would recommend this. But again, I will put a warning that this game does spoil the ending of the show. So if the show does interest you a little bit, watch it first. Thankfully, this is one of those licensed games that definitely goes on the good pile, as it shows no dishonor to its source material. I hope you enjoy my thoughts in this game, and for gamer's sake, keep gaming.